Before the world learned to rush, there was a place where time moved slowly and life followed familiar paths. In ancient Greece, days were shaped by light and shadow rather than urgency or noise. Here, routine carried meaning and silence held knowledge. As the city wakes without haste, life begins not with ambition but with balance. This is not a story of heroes or battles, but of ordinary days flowing gently from morning to night. Let the rhythm of ancient Greece unfold slowly and without effort. Life in ancient Greece began each day without urgency, as the return of light marked continuation rather than a new beginning. Morning arrived quietly across stone streets, courtyards, and open spaces, allowing routine to resume without announcement or anticipation. Individuals did not rush to define the day ahead, because the shape of daily life was already familiar through repetition and shared rhythm. This familiarity reduced the need for planning or reflection, allowing movement to begin naturally and without strain. The structure of daily life rested on continuity rather than variation, as activities repeated with subtle consistency across time. People moved through their surroundings guided by habit rather than intention, following paths that required little attention or decision. This absence of novelty preserved calm and reduced mental demand, allowing awareness to remain steady and unforced. Life unfolded as a gentle extension of what had come before rather than a sequence of tasks to be completed. Homes opened gradually to the morning light, revealing spaces shaped by repeated use rather than display. Domestic environments supported routine through familiarity and order, enabling individuals to begin their day without adjustment or evaluation. The layout of living spaces encouraged quiet movement and minimal effort, preserving energy and focus. Life within the home flowed outward slowly, merging with the wider rhythm of the city without disruption. The city itself did not awaken suddenly, but shifted gently from stillness toward activity. Streets remained calm and predictable, allowing individuals to move without urgency or crowding. Sounds and motion emerged gradually, never overwhelming or demanding attention. This slow increase preserved balance and prevented stimulation, supporting a calm transition from rest into activity. Daily roles were resumed without announcement, as responsibility returned through familiarity rather than command. People engaged in expected tasks that required no justification or urgency, reinforcing stability rather than ambition. The absence of pressure allowed effort to remain measured and sustainable, supporting endurance across long periods of routine life. Work and presence blended quietly, avoiding sharp distinction between activity and rest. Social interaction followed similar patterns of restraint and predictability, as encounters occurred through shared understanding rather than intention. Individuals acknowledged one another without interruption or display, allowing connection to remain subtle and unforced. This alignment reduced tension and preserved harmony, enabling community life to function smoothly without stimulation or conflict. The natural environment reinforced this calm beginning, as light, air, and temperature guided behavior without control. Environmental cues were familiar and reliable, allowing individuals to adjust naturally rather than react consciously. This relationship between life and surroundings reduced uncertainty and preserved confidence, supporting calm through recognition rather than awareness. Over time, this gentle beginning shaped a worldview centered on balance and continuity. Life was not experienced as a sequence of goals or challenges, but as an ongoing rhythm sustained through repetition and familiarity. The day did not demand attention or urgency, allowing presence to remain steady and unforced. In ancient Greece, life began each morning not with effort or intention, but with quiet continuation. Daily routine in ancient Greece unfolded through repetition rather than decision, as individuals moved through familiar patterns that required little attention or adjustment. The rhythm of the day was not planned or evaluated, because it was already understood through long habit and shared experience. Each action followed the previous one naturally, creating a continuous flow that supported calm rather than stimulation. This predictable structure reduced uncertainty and preserved balance, allowing daily life to progress without urgency or anticipation. Morning activity emerged gradually and quietly, shaped by light and temperature rather than intention. Individuals began moving through domestic spaces guided by familiarity rather than awareness, performing tasks that had been repeated countless times before. These actions required no reflection or judgment, allowing the mind to remain steady and unoccupied. Routine did not restrict freedom, but provided stability that reduced effort and preserved energy across the day. Movement beyond the home followed similar patterns of predictability, as paths and destinations were already known through repetition. Streets and open spaces supported calm progression without congestion or haste, allowing individuals to move without pressure or interruption. Encounters occurred naturally without planning, reinforcing social alignment through shared rhythm rather than conversation or display. Daily routine therefore extended beyond the household into the wider environment without disruption. Work and responsibility were absorbed into routine rather than distinguished as separate demands, allowing activity to remain steady and sustainable. Individuals returned to expected roles without urgency, performing tasks that supported continuity rather than achievement. This absence of performance reduced strain and prevented escalation, enabling effort to be applied evenly across long periods. Routine provided a framework that balanced action and rest without requiring control or adjustment. Time within daily routine was experienced as open rather than limited, as tasks unfolded without deadline or evaluation. Progress was measured through completion rather than speed, reducing pressure and preserving calm. Delays did not introduce stress, because routine accommodated variation without disruption. This perception allowed individuals to remain present within activity rather than anticipating outcome or interruption. The repetition of daily actions supported psychological steadiness, as familiarity reduced cognitive demand and emotional fluctuation. The mind was not required to respond to novelty or decision, allowing attention to rest within known patterns. This stability preserved calm across changing conditions, enabling individuals to move through the day without internal tension. Routine therefore functioned as a stabilizing presence rather than a constraint. Social life aligned naturally with daily routine, as shared patterns synchronized individual behavior without coordination. People adjusted pace and presence by observing others rather than through instruction, reinforcing harmony through quiet imitation. This alignment reduced conflict and uncertainty, allowing community life to proceed smoothly without emphasis or interruption. Routine became a shared language that required no explanation or enforcement. Environmental consistency reinforced daily rhythm through familiarity and repetition, as spaces remained stable and predictable across time. Buildings, pathways, and gathering areas supported routine movement without requiring navigation or awareness. This stability reduced effort and preserved confidence, allowing individuals to interact with their surroundings calmly and efficiently. The environment itself participated in sustaining routine through repetition and recognition. Over time, the steady repetition of daily routine shaped a worldview centered on continuity and balance. Life was experienced not as a sequence of events, but as a flowing pattern sustained through familiarity and shared rhythm. The day did not demand attention or urgency, allowing presence to remain steady and unforced. In ancient Greece, daily routine supported calm endurance by allowing life to continue without disruption or acceleration. Morning life in an ancient Greek city unfolded slowly and without urgency, as light moved across stone walls and open spaces rather than announcing the start of activity. The city did not awaken through noise or sudden motion, but through gradual presence as individuals emerged into familiar surroundings. This gentle transition allowed routine to resume without disruption, supporting calm through continuity rather than stimulation. Domestic spaces opened quietly toward the outside, allowing movement to flow outward without intention or planning. Courtyard streets and thresholds guided behavior through familiarity rather than direction, enabling individuals to move with confidence and minimal effort. The absence of novelty reduced mental demand, allowing awareness to remain steady and unoccupied. Morning did not require decision-making, because daily patterns were already known through repetition. Movement within the city followed predictable paths shaped by long use, as individuals walked routes that required no attention or evaluation. These familiar passages reduced uncertainty and preserved balance, allowing movement to remain smooth and unhurried. Encounters occurred naturally without coordination, reinforcing social alignment through shared rhythm rather than conversation or display. Morning life therefore supported community cohesion without demanding interaction or emphasis. Activity increased gradually as light strengthened, but never reached intensity or urgency. Tasks resumed in measured sequence, allowing effort to be distributed evenly rather than concentrated. This steady increase preserved energy and prevented strain, supporting endurance across the day. Morning work was not separated sharply from rest, but blended gently into the existing rhythm of life. The city environment reinforced calm through consistency, as buildings and open spaces remained unchanged and predictable. Architectural repetition provided visual stability that reduced stimulation and distraction, allowing individuals to orient themselves effortlessly. This environmental familiarity preserved confidence and ease, supporting calm movement without vigilance or adjustment. The city itself participated in sustaining morning rhythm through permanence and order. Social presence during morning hours remained restrained and predictable, as individuals acknowledged one another without interruption or display. Shared understanding guided behavior quietly, allowing connection to remain subtle and unforced. This restraint reduced tension and prevented escalation, enabling morning life to proceed smoothly without emotional demand. Community existed through proximity rather than interaction, reinforcing calm through coexistence. Environmental cues such as light, air, and temperature guided behavior without instruction, allowing adjustment to occur naturally rather than consciously. These cues were familiar and reliable, reducing uncertainty and preserving trust in routine. Individuals responded without effort or anticipation, supporting steady transition into daily activity. Morning therefore unfolded as a continuation rather than a beginning, maintaining calm through repetition. Over time, the repetition of morning life shaped a worldview centered on balance and continuity. The city was experienced not as a place of urgency or ambition, but as a stable environment that supported steady presence. Morning did not demand attention or acceleration, allowing life to resume gently and without strain. In an ancient Greek city, morning life sustained calm endurance by allowing daily rhythm to continue without disruption or intensity. Ancient Greek homes were shaped by routine and necessity rather than comfort or display, as living spaces supported daily continuity through familiarity and repetition. Houses were not designed to impress or stimulate, but to contain life quietly and predictably across long periods of use. Family life unfolded within these spaces without separation between roles or moments, allowing routine to guide behavior rather than intention or planning. Domestic spaces were organized to reduce movement and decision-making, as repeated use established natural paths and habits over time. Individuals moved through rooms and courtyards guided by familiarity rather than awareness, performing daily actions without reflection or adjustment. This spatial consistency preserved calm and reduced mental demand, allowing family life to continue smoothly without disruption or strain. Family roles were absorbed gradually through presence rather than instruction, as younger members observed routine behavior and internalized expectation through repetition. Responsibility shifted slowly without announcement, allowing identity to evolve without tension or resistance. This gradual process reduced anxiety and preserved balance, supporting harmony within the household across changing ages and capacities. Family life therefore functioned as a continuous flow rather than a structured hierarchy. Daily interaction within the home remained restrained and predictable, as behavior followed known patterns that limited variation and stimulation. Communication occurred through shared understanding rather than emphasis, allowing connection to remain subtle and unforced. This restraint preserved calm and prevented escalation, enabling coexistence without emotional demand or conflict. Family bonds were reinforced through repeated presence rather than expression or declaration. Household activity blended work, rest, and care without sharp boundaries, as tasks flowed into one another according to routine rather than schedule. Maintenance and preparation occurred steadily without urgency, allowing effort to be distributed evenly across the day. This balance prevented fatigue and preserved endurance, supporting sustainability within domestic life. The home therefore acted as a stabilizing environment where activity and stillness coexisted naturally. Environmental familiarity within the household supported confidence and security, as spaces remained consistent across long periods of use. Walls, floors, and courtyards provided reliable reference points that required no attention or adjustment. This stability reduced uncertainty and preserved ease, allowing individuals to navigate daily life without vigilance. The environment itself participated in maintaining calm through repetition and order. Family life extended beyond individual relationships into shared rhythm, as members aligned behavior through observation rather than coordination. This alignment reduced friction and preserved harmony, enabling the household to function smoothly without enforcement or correction. Routine acted as a silent guide that sustained balance and continuity across daily life. Family therefore existed as a rhythm rather than a structure imposed from outside. Over time, the repetition of domestic routine shaped a worldview centered on continuity and mutual reliance. The home was experienced not as a private retreat or social stage, but as a stable container for daily life. Family life did not demand attention or change, allowing presence to remain steady and unforced. In ancient Greece, homes and family life sustained calm endurance by allowing routine to continue quietly across generations. Food and meals in ancient Greece were approached as quiet elements of daily routine rather than moments of celebration or urgency, as eating supported continuity and balance within everyday life. Meals did not interrupt activity or demand attention, but fit naturally into the rhythm of the day through familiarity and repetition. Individuals did not seek variety or stimulation through food, because nourishment was valued for reliability rather than novelty. This approach preserved calm and reduced decision-making, allowing meals to occur without anticipation or distraction. Food preparation followed established habits shaped by availability and routine rather than preference, as ingredients were selected through familiarity rather than choice. Daily meals relied on simple components repeated across time, enabling preparation to occur without adjustment or evaluation. This repetition reduced mental demand and preserved energy, allowing nourishment to be integrated smoothly into daily life. Cooking and preparation therefore functioned as maintenance rather than creative expression. Meals were consumed slowly and without urgency, as eating aligned with the general pace of life rather than competing with it. Individuals ate according to hunger and routine rather than schedule or expectation, allowing the body to guide behavior naturally. This absence of pressure prevented overstimulation and preserved balance, supporting digestion and rest without strain. Eating became a quiet continuation of the day rather than a focal event. Social aspects of meals remained restrained and predictable, as shared eating reinforced connection without emphasis or display. Interaction during meals followed familiar patterns that limited variation and emotional demand, allowing presence without obligation. This restraint preserved harmony and prevented escalation, enabling shared nourishment to support calm rather than stimulation. Meals therefore reinforced social alignment through quiet coexistence rather than interaction or conversation. The environment in which meals took place supported stillness and familiarity, as domestic spaces provided consistent settings that required no adjustment. Familiar surfaces and arrangements reduced movement and distraction, allowing individuals to remain settled while eating. This environmental stability preserved ease and confidence, enabling nourishment to occur without effort or awareness. The space itself contributed to calm by limiting sensory input and maintaining order. Food availability followed predictable patterns shaped by routine and season rather than sudden change, reducing uncertainty and preserving trust in daily life. Individuals understood what would be eaten without anticipation or concern, allowing attention to remain steady rather than focused on acquisition or choice. This predictability reduced anxiety and preserved balance, supporting calm across long periods of routine nourishment. Over time, the repetition of meals and food practices shaped a worldview centered on sufficiency and moderation. Eating was not experienced as pleasure-seeking or performance, but as a sustaining activity that supported continuity. This perspective preserved calm by aligning nourishment with routine rather than desire. In ancient Greece, food and meals sustained daily life quietly by reinforcing balance, repetition, and familiarity across generations. Bread, olive oil, and simple nourishment formed the steady foundation of daily nutrition in ancient Greece, supporting endurance and balance rather than indulgence or variety. Food was not approached as a source of excitement or pleasure-seeking, but as a reliable element of routine that sustained daily activity without drawing attention to itself. This understanding reduced expectation and preserved calm, allowing nourishment to blend quietly into the rhythm of everyday life. Bread appeared regularly and predictably within daily meals, prepared through familiar methods repeated across time. The process required little adjustment or reflection, as ingredients and techniques were already known through long habit. This repetition reduced mental effort and preserved energy, enabling food preparation to proceed without disruption or urgency. Bread therefore functioned as a stabilizing presence rather than a focus of choice or desire. Olive oil accompanied daily nourishment as a consistent and trusted element, valued for reliability rather than distinction. Its use followed established patterns that changed little over long periods, reinforcing familiarity and predictability. Individuals did not seek variation in use or flavor, because consistency supported balance and reduced stimulation. Olive oil therefore integrated quietly into daily nutrition without demanding awareness or preference. The combination of bread and oil supported sustained energy without excess, aligning nourishment with the measured pace of daily life. Meals did not aim to satisfy craving or indulgence, but to maintain strength across repeated activity. This moderation prevented fatigue and preserved steadiness, allowing individuals to continue routine tasks without strain or interruption. Nutrition therefore reinforced calm by supporting continuity rather than excitement. Food consumption followed bodily cues rather than external schedule, allowing individuals to eat without pressure or anticipation. Hunger was addressed gently through familiar nourishment rather than urgent response, preserving balance within daily rhythm. This approach reduced anxiety and prevented overstimulation, enabling nourishment to remain a quiet act within the flow of life. Eating did not interrupt routine, but supported its continuation smoothly. Social interaction around nourishment remained minimal and predictable, as shared eating occurred without emphasis or display. Individuals aligned behavior naturally through routine rather than conversation, allowing presence without emotional demand. This restraint preserved harmony and prevented escalation, enabling food to support calm coexistence rather than social engagement. Daily nutrition therefore reinforced social stability through quiet repetition. Environmental consistency further supported nourishment through familiar settings, as eating occurred in spaces shaped by repeated use rather than arrangement. Surfaces, vessels, and surroundings required no adjustment or attention, allowing individuals to remain settled while eating. This stability reduced distraction and preserved ease, supporting nourishment without awareness or effort. The environment itself contributed to calm by limiting stimulation and maintaining order. Over time, the repetition of simple nourishment shaped a worldview centered on sufficiency and moderation. Bread and olive oil were valued not for distinction or pleasure, but for their role in sustaining daily life reliably. This perspective preserved calm by aligning nutrition with routine rather than desire. In ancient Greece, daily nourishment supported endurance and balance by remaining consistent, quiet, and unremarkable across generations. Water use and daily hygiene in ancient Greece followed steady patterns shaped by availability, habit, and environmental awareness rather than urgency or intervention, as care of the body was integrated quietly into routine life. Cleanliness was not treated as a separate concern requiring attention or instruction, but as a natural extension of daily activity repeated through familiarity. This integration reduced effort and preserved calm, allowing hygiene to support balance without becoming a focal point of the day. Water was approached as a reliable presence rather than a resource to be managed actively, guiding behavior through routine rather than decision. Individuals used water according to established habits learned through repetition rather than explanation, allowing care to occur without planning or anticipation. This predictability reduced mental demand and preserved steadiness, enabling daily hygiene to unfold smoothly alongside other routine actions. Daily washing followed simple and consistent patterns, performed without urgency or variation across time. The body was cared for through gentle, repeated actions that required no evaluation or correction, supporting comfort and balance without stimulation. This quiet repetition prevented neglect without creating emphasis, allowing hygiene to remain a background activity within daily life. Care occurred through continuity rather than response to discomfort or need. Spaces associated with water use supported calm through familiarity and order, as fountains, basins, and vessels were arranged for repeated use rather than display. These environments required minimal movement and adjustment, allowing individuals to perform routine care without distraction or awareness. Environmental consistency preserved ease and confidence, enabling hygiene to proceed without vigilance or concern. The setting itself contributed to calm by limiting variation and sensory demand. Water use also supported cooling and moderation rather than intensity, aligning bodily comfort with environmental rhythm. Individuals responded to heat and exertion through familiar practices rather than urgent reaction, allowing balance to be restored gradually. This measured response prevented strain and preserved endurance, enabling daily activity to continue without interruption or escalation. Hygiene therefore functioned as maintenance rather than repair within routine life. Social behavior around water use remained restrained and predictable, as individuals shared spaces without interaction or emphasis. Shared understanding guided presence quietly, preventing congestion or disruption. This alignment reduced friction and preserved harmony, allowing hygiene practices to occur without social demand or attention. Care of the body remained a private and steady activity even within shared environments. The repetition of hygiene practices contributed to psychological steadiness, as familiar actions reduced uncertainty and supported a sense of order. The mind was not required to monitor or evaluate bodily state constantly, allowing attention to remain calm and unoccupied. This stability preserved comfort and confidence across changing conditions, enabling individuals to remain present within routine without distraction. Hygiene therefore supported mental ease alongside physical care. Over time, the quiet integration of water use and hygiene shaped a worldview centered on moderation and balance. Care of the body was valued for its role in sustaining daily life rather than enhancing appearance or performance. This perspective preserved calm by aligning hygiene with routine rather than attention or concern. In ancient Greece, water use and daily hygiene supported endurance and stability by remaining consistent, gentle, and unremarkable across generations. Clothing and everyday dress in ancient Greece reflected practicality, continuity, and environmental awareness rather than decoration or personal display. As garments were designed to support daily life without drawing attention or requiring constant change. Dress did not function as a marker of individuality or ambition, but as a familiar element of routine that blended quietly into the rhythm of ordinary activity. This consistency reduced decision-making and preserved calm, allowing individuals to move through daily life without concern for appearance or variation. Materials used for clothing followed predictable patterns shaped by availability and habit rather than preference, reinforcing familiarity across generations. Fabric preparation and garment construction relied on repeated methods that changed little over time, allowing outcomes to remain expected and reliable. This repetition reduced uncertainty and preserved efficiency, enabling clothing to be produced and maintained without disruption or experimentation. Dress therefore functioned as a stable extension of routine rather than a focus of attention. The structure of everyday garments supported movement without restriction, allowing individuals to work, rest, and travel without interruption or discomfort. Clothing adapted to the body through familiarity rather than adjustment, reducing the need for alteration or correction. This ease of movement preserved energy and prevented distraction, supporting sustained activity without strain. Dress contributed quietly to endurance by remaining functional and unremarkable throughout the day. Daily care of clothing followed similar patterns of repetition, as cleaning, folding, and storage were integrated into routine without emphasis. Maintenance occurred gradually and evenly across time, preventing moments of urgency or neglect. This steady approach preserved garment longevity and reduced effort, allowing clothing to remain serviceable without drawing attention or requiring concentrated labor. Care of dress therefore reinforced calm through predictability and moderation. Social alignment was supported through shared styles and materials, minimizing visual difference and reducing comparison. When clothing followed common patterns, individuals experienced less separation and distinction within the community. This uniformity reduced social tension and distraction, allowing interaction to remain focused on routine rather than appearance. Dress therefore contributed indirectly to harmony by maintaining visual continuity within daily life. Environmental conditions influenced dress without requiring conscious adaptation, as garments were suited naturally to climate and activity through established design. Individuals adjusted comfort through habit rather than evaluation, allowing clothing to support balance without awareness. This alignment with environment preserved calm and reduced physical strain, enabling daily life to proceed smoothly across changing conditions. Dress functioned as a mediator between body and surroundings through familiarity rather than innovation. Psychological steadiness was reinforced through the familiarity of everyday dress, as predictable appearance reduced self-awareness and mental demand. Individuals did not need to monitor or adjust presentation throughout the day, allowing attention to remain focused on routine activity rather than self-evaluation. This consistency supported ease and confidence, enabling calm presence within social and domestic spaces. Clothing therefore supported mental quiet by remaining constant and unobtrusive. Over time, the repetition of clothing practices shaped a worldview centered on function and continuity. Dress was valued for reliability rather than expression or novelty, supporting daily life without distraction or emphasis. This perspective preserved calm by aligning appearance with routine rather than identity. In ancient Greece, clothing and everyday dress sustained balance and endurance by remaining consistent, practical, and quietly integrated across generations. Work and occupations in ancient Greece were organized around continuity and endurance rather than urgency or ambition, as daily labor followed familiar patterns repeated across time. Occupations did not demand constant evaluation or competition, because roles were understood through habit and shared expectation. Individuals returned each day to known forms of work without anticipation or pressure, allowing effort to unfold steadily and without strain. This predictability reduced anxiety and preserved balance, enabling work to remain integrated within daily life rather than dominating it. Daily labor began without sharp transition from rest, as work blended naturally into the rhythm of the day. Tasks resumed through familiarity rather than instruction, requiring little conscious focus or adjustment. This smooth transition preserved energy and prevented overstimulation, allowing individuals to engage in activity without tension or resistance. Work was not experienced as a burden or challenge, but as a continuation of routine presence. Occupations varied across the city and countryside, yet shared a common rhythm shaped by repetition rather than speed. Crafts, farming, trade, and service followed measured pacing that aligned with environmental conditions and communal behavior. Individuals did not rush to complete tasks, because completion was understood as part of an ongoing cycle rather than a final outcome. This perception reduced urgency and supported endurance across long periods of sustained activity. Tools and methods used in daily work were familiar and reliable, designed to support repetition rather than innovation. Techniques changed slowly across generations, allowing skill to develop through habit rather than experimentation. This stability reduced error and adjustment, preserving confidence and calm within labor. Work therefore proceeded smoothly without demanding heightened awareness or constant correction. Social expectations around work emphasized contribution rather than recognition, allowing individuals to fulfill roles without pressure to distinguish themselves. Cooperation emerged naturally through shared rhythm rather than instruction or oversight, reducing conflict and comparison. This alignment preserved harmony within working environments, enabling tasks to be completed quietly and efficiently. Work supported community balance rather than individual achievement. Periods of reduced effort were naturally integrated into the working day, as pauses and slower phases occurred in response to physical cues rather than schedule. Rest was accepted as part of labor rather than its interruption, preventing fatigue and preserving strength. This balance supported sustainability and reduced strain, allowing individuals to continue work across long spans without exhaustion. Activity and stillness flowed together without separation or emphasis. Environmental consistency reinforced calm within work, as familiar spaces and repeated settings reduced uncertainty and distraction. Workshops, fields, and communal areas guided behavior through recognition rather than direction, allowing individuals to act confidently without vigilance. This stability preserved mental ease and physical balance, supporting steady engagement with labor throughout the day. Over time, the repetition of work and occupations shaped a worldview centered on continuity and balance. Labor was valued for its reliability rather than productivity or reward, supporting daily life without acceleration or pressure. Individuals experienced work as part of a shared rhythm rather than a personal challenge, preserving calm and endurance across routine life. In ancient Greece, work and occupations sustained stability by remaining predictable, measured, and quietly integrated across generations. Craftsmanship and skilled labor in ancient Greece developed through patience, repetition, and familiarity, rather than urgency or creative pressure, as skill was refined quietly through daily practice that changed little over time. Artisans did not seek innovation or distinction within their work, but focused on reliability and consistency that supported routine life. This approach reduced mental strain and preserved calm, allowing skilled labor to remain steady and sustainable across long periods of repetition. Workshops functioned as familiar environments shaped by repeated use rather than adaptation, where tools, surfaces, and materials occupied known positions that required no adjustment or planning. Artisans moved through these spaces guided by habit rather than awareness, performing tasks that had been repeated countless times before. This spatial familiarity reduced distraction and preserved focus, enabling work to proceed smoothly without interruption or correction. The process of creating objects followed measured pacing rather than speed, as each action flowed naturally into the next through familiarity. There was no urgency to complete or deliver, because production aligned with ongoing demand rather than immediate outcome. This steady rhythm preserved energy and prevented fatigue, allowing artisans to sustain effort without tension or acceleration. Craft work therefore supported endurance by remaining calm and predictable within daily routine. Learning skilled labor occurred through observation and imitation rather than instruction, as knowledge passed gradually from experienced hands to new ones through repeated exposure. Younger individuals absorbed technique by watching routine unfold rather than receiving explanation or evaluation. This method preserved uniformity and reduced variation, ensuring that skills remained consistent across generations. Learning became a quiet process of accumulation rather than a challenge to overcome. Materials used in craft work were familiar and reliable, chosen for availability and consistency rather than novelty. Artisans understood how materials behaved through long experience, reducing uncertainty and preventing error. This familiarity preserved confidence and calm, allowing work to continue without experimentation or correction. Materials therefore integrated smoothly into routine rather than demanding attention or adaptation. Social perception of craftsmanship emphasized contribution rather than recognition, as skilled labor supported daily life without display or competition. Artisans fulfilled expected roles quietly, reinforcing stability rather than ambition. This absence of pressure reduced comparison and preserved harmony, allowing work to remain grounded within community rhythm. Craftsmanship functioned as a stabilizing element rather than a means of distinction. Periods of rest and reduced activity were naturally embedded within skilled labor, as pauses occurred in response to physical cues rather than imposed structure. This balance prevented strain and preserved long-term capacity, allowing artisans to continue work without exhaustion. Activity and stillness flowed together without separation, reinforcing calm within the working day. Over time, the repetition of skilled labor shaped a worldview centered on mastery through continuity rather than change. Craftsmanship was valued for its reliability and endurance, supporting daily life quietly without drawing attention. This perspective preserved calm by aligning skill with routine rather than achievement. In ancient Greece, craftsmanship and skilled labor sustained stability by remaining patient, measured, and deeply integrated across generations. Farming and agricultural life in ancient Greece unfolded through patience, familiarity, and environmental awareness rather than urgency or force, as cultivation followed cycles that returned reliably year after year. Farmers did not attempt to control time or outcome aggressively, but aligned their activity with known patterns shaped by season and land. This alignment reduced anxiety and preserved calm, allowing agricultural work to remain steady and sustainable across long periods of repetition. Daily agricultural activity began gradually without sharp transition, as individuals moved into fields guided by habit rather than intention. Tasks such as preparing soil, tending plants, and maintaining boundaries were performed through repeated motion that required little conscious focus. This familiarity reduced mental demand and preserved physical balance, enabling farmers to sustain effort without strain or escalation. Farming therefore functioned as a continuation of routine rather than a challenge requiring urgency. The pace of agricultural work was measured and consistent, avoiding concentration of effort into intense periods. Labor unfolded step by step without pressure to accelerate, allowing endurance to develop naturally over time. Because outcomes depended on cycles rather than speed, there was little incentive to rush or overextend. This perspective preserved energy and prevented exhaustion, supporting long-term stability within agricultural life. Tools and techniques used in farming remained simple and familiar, refined through repetition rather than innovation. Farmers relied on methods that had proven reliable across generations, reducing uncertainty and preventing error. This consistency preserved confidence and calm, allowing work to proceed smoothly without constant adjustment or correction. Farming therefore integrated quietly into daily life without demanding heightened attention. Environmental cues guided agricultural behavior without instruction, as light, temperature, and seasonal change signaled when to act and when to wait. These cues were familiar and predictable, allowing individuals to respond naturally rather than react consciously. This relationship between labor and environment reduced stress and preserved balance, supporting calm engagement with work that extended across long spans of time. Periods of rest were naturally embedded within agricultural routine, as exertion alternated with stillness according to physical and environmental conditions. Pauses occurred without formal scheduling, preventing fatigue from accumulating and preserving strength. This balance allowed farming activity to remain manageable and sustainable, enabling individuals to return each day without resistance or strain. Activity and rest flowed together within the same rhythm. Social coordination within farming communities reinforced steadiness, as shared rhythm aligned individual effort without instruction or oversight. Cooperation emerged through observation rather than command, reducing conflict and preserving harmony. This alignment allowed agricultural tasks to be completed efficiently without urgency or competition, supporting calm within collective labor. Over time, the repetition of farming and agricultural life shaped a worldview centered on patience and continuity. Cultivation was valued not for immediate yield or expansion, but for its role in sustaining daily life reliably. This perspective preserved calm by aligning labor with natural rhythm rather than ambition. In ancient Greece, farming and agricultural life sustained endurance and balance by remaining predictable, measured, and quietly integrated across generations. Seasonal cycles shaped daily life in ancient Greece through familiarity and gradual change rather than disruption or urgency. As time was experienced through repetition and return rather than progression toward an endpoint. Each season arrived quietly and departed without announcement, allowing routine to adjust gently without interruption or strain. Individuals did not measure time through novelty or anticipation, but through recognition of familiar patterns that reappeared year after year. This cyclical awareness preserved calm and reduced anxiety, enabling daily life to remain steady across changing conditions. Daily activities aligned naturally with seasonal rhythm rather than resisting it, as work, rest, and movement adjusted through habit rather than decision. The pace of life slowed or strengthened in response to light, temperature, and availability without requiring conscious planning. This alignment reduced effort and preserved balance, allowing individuals to remain present within routine rather than reacting to change. Seasons were not obstacles to overcome, but conditions to move within calmly and predictably. Agricultural tasks reflected seasonal rhythm through repetition rather than urgency, as planting, tending, and harvesting followed known sequences shaped by experience. Farmers relied on recognition rather than instruction, allowing labor to unfold at an even pace without pressure. This predictability reduced uncertainty and preserved endurance, supporting sustained effort without escalation. Seasonal work therefore reinforced continuity rather than demanding adaptation or innovation. Domestic life also adjusted quietly to seasonal change, as daily habits shifted subtly without reorganization or emphasis. Meals, clothing, and activity adapted through familiarity rather than evaluation, enabling comfort without attention or concern. This gentle adjustment preserved mental ease and prevented disruption, allowing routine to continue smoothly despite environmental variation. The household remained a stable container within which seasonal change occurred without strain. Social rhythm followed the same cyclical pattern, as communal behavior adjusted through shared observation rather than coordination. Individuals mirrored one another's pace naturally, reducing friction and preserving harmony. This alignment prevented imbalance and supported cohesion, allowing seasonal variation to be absorbed collectively rather than individually. Community life therefore reflected seasonal change through calm synchronization rather than response. The environment itself reinforced cyclical awareness through consistent cues, as landscape light and temperature shifted gradually rather than abruptly. These cues were familiar and predictable, allowing individuals to anticipate change without vigilance or anxiety. Recognition replaced surprise, preserving calm and confidence across transitions. Seasonal awareness emerged through presence rather than reflection, supporting steadiness within daily life. Psychological steadiness was supported by this cyclical understanding, as individuals did not attach urgency or expectation to change. Time was experienced as returning rather than advancing, reducing pressure to accomplish or conclude. This perspective preserved calm and prevented restlessness, allowing life to unfold without acceleration or resistance. Seasons therefore supported mental balance by reinforcing continuity rather than progression. Over time, the repetition of seasonal cycles shaped a worldview centered on return and endurance. Life was not perceived as moving toward resolution, but as circulating within an enduring pattern. Individuals lived within time rather than against it, preserving calm through acceptance of repetition. In ancient Greece, seasonal cycles sustained daily life quietly by reinforcing familiarity, balance, and continuity across generations. Markets and trade in ancient Greece functioned as calm extensions of daily routine rather than centers of urgency or competition, as exchange followed familiar patterns shaped by habit and shared expectation. Trade did not interrupt ordinary life or demand rapid decision-making, because value and purpose were already understood through repetition and long experience. Individuals approached markets without anticipation or pressure, allowing exchange to unfold steadily and without strain. This predictability reduced anxiety and preserved balance, enabling trade to support continuity rather than stimulation. Market spaces were visited regularly and predictably, becoming familiar environments rather than destinations requiring preparation. Paths leading to these spaces were known through repeated use, allowing individuals to arrive without attention or adjustment. The layout of market areas supported calm movement and brief interaction, preventing congestion and escalation. Trade therefore occurred as part of routine movement rather than as a separate event within the day. Goods exchanged in markets reflected necessity and maintenance rather than novelty or display, reinforcing sufficiency over accumulation. Items circulated through customary practice rather than negotiation or urgency, allowing exchange to remain brief and restrained. This absence of aggressive bargaining preserved calm and cooperation, enabling individuals to complete transactions without tension or emotional demand. Trade supported balance by reinforcing predictable access rather than desire or competition. The pace of market activity remained measured and consistent, aligning with the broader rhythm of daily life. Individuals did not rush to acquire or depart, because participation followed known timing rather than opportunity. This steadiness prevented overstimulation and preserved mental ease, allowing trade to blend quietly into routine activity. Markets therefore reinforced continuity rather than introducing variation or excitement. Social interaction within markets remained restrained and predictable, as behavior followed shared norms that limited variation. Exchange occurred through recognition rather than persuasion, reducing the need for conversation or emphasis. This alignment preserved harmony and prevented conflict, enabling communal spaces to function smoothly without intervention. Markets supported social cohesion by maintaining familiar patterns rather than encouraging distinction. Movement of goods beyond local markets followed similar principles of consistency, as routes and timing were shaped by repetition rather than urgency. Trade connections developed gradually through reliability rather than expansion, reducing uncertainty and preserving trust. This stability allowed exchange to occur without vigilance or pressure, supporting endurance within economic life. Trade networks therefore functioned as steady links rather than dynamic forces within society. Environmental familiarity reinforced calm within market activity, as spaces remained recognizable across time. Structure's surfaces and boundaries required no interpretation or navigation, allowing individuals to move confidently without distraction. This stability reduced cognitive load and preserved balance, supporting relaxed participation within shared environments. The market itself became a predictable landscape that required no attention beyond presence. Over time, the repetition of market exchange shaped a worldview centered on balance and sufficiency. Trade was valued for its role in sustaining daily life rather than generating wealth or change, preserving calm through moderation. Individuals engaged in exchange without urgency or ambition, allowing routine to remain uninterrupted. In ancient Greece, markets and trade sustained stability by remaining predictable, restrained, and quietly integrated across generations. The Agora in ancient Greece existed as a calm and familiar space within daily life rather than a center of urgency or spectacle, as public routine unfolded there through repetition and shared understanding. This space did not demand attention or preparation, because individuals passed through it naturally as part of their ordinary movement across the city. The Agora supported continuity rather than change, allowing daily life to flow steadily without interruption or emphasis. Public presence within the Agora followed predictable patterns shaped by habit rather than intention, as individuals entered and departed according to routine paths and timing. There was no expectation of constant interaction or engagement, allowing people to coexist quietly within shared space. This restraint preserved calm and reduced social pressure, enabling the Agora to function as a stable environment rather than a focal point of activity. Daily routines associated with the Agora blended seamlessly into surrounding life, as tasks such as exchange, observation, and quiet presence occurred without urgency. Individuals did not rush to complete actions or linger with purpose, because participation followed familiarity rather than desire. This measured pacing reduced mental demand and preserved balance, allowing public life to remain gentle and unforced. The physical layout of the Agora reinforced calm through openness and repetition, as familiar boundaries, surfaces, and pathways guided movement without instruction. Architectural consistency reduced uncertainty and prevented congestion, enabling individuals to navigate the space confidently without vigilance. This environmental stability supported ease and comfort, allowing the Agora to remain integrated within daily rhythm rather than standing apart as a destination. Social behavior within the Agora remained restrained and predictable, as shared norms limited variation and prevented escalation. Interaction occurred through recognition rather than exchange of attention, preserving harmony and minimizing distraction. Individuals acknowledged presence without demand, allowing communal life to exist through proximity rather than engagement. The Agora therefore supported social alignment quietly rather than through coordination or emphasis. Time spent within the Agora was not marked by duration or outcome, as presence flowed naturally between arrival and departure. Individuals did not measure productivity or achievement within this space, allowing routine to remain free of evaluation. This absence of expectation preserved calm and reduced internal tension, enabling public routine to support steadiness rather than ambition. The Agora functioned as a passage rather than a destination within daily life. Environmental cues such as light, shadow, and temperature guided behavior within the Agora without instruction, allowing individuals to adjust pace naturally. These cues were familiar and predictable, reducing uncertainty and preserving trust in routine. Movement slowed or quickened gently without disruption, supporting continuity within public life. The environment itself participated in sustaining calm through gradual change rather than contrast. Over time, Repeated use of the Agora shaped a worldview centered on shared presence and continuity. Public space was valued for its reliability rather than its capacity to stimulate or transform, preserving calm through familiarity. Individuals moved through the Agora without anticipation or reflection, allowing daily life to continue without interruption. In ancient Greece, the Agora and public daily routine sustained balance by remaining predictable, open, and quietly integrated across generations. Travel and movement in ancient Greece unfolded as calm extensions of daily routine rather than deliberate journeys requiring preparation or urgency. As people moved through land and sea guided by familiarity rather than intention. Movement did not represent escape or transition, but continuity, allowing individuals to remain within the same rhythm even while changing location. This understanding reduced anxiety and preserved balance, enabling travel to occur without anticipation or strain. Paths between homes, fields, markets, and public spaces were known through repetition rather than navigation, allowing individuals to move confidently without awareness or decision-making. Roads, footpaths, and coastal routes followed familiar lines shaped by long use, reducing uncertainty and preserving ease. This predictability allowed movement to remain smooth and unhurried, supporting calm presence rather than alertness or vigilance. Daily movement within cities followed similar principles of steadiness, as individuals walked at measured pace aligned with communal rhythm. There was no pressure to arrive quickly or optimize time, because destinations were part of routine rather than objectives to be achieved. This relaxed pacing reduced physical and mental strain, allowing movement to remain integrated within daily life rather than standing apart as effort or task. Longer travel beyond the city also reflected moderation rather than urgency, as journeys unfolded gradually across known landscapes. Travelers relied on familiarity with terrain, climate, and timing rather than planning or adaptation, allowing movement to progress steadily without tension. This approach preserved endurance and prevented fatigue, enabling travel to remain sustainable over extended periods. Distance was accepted rather than resisted, reinforcing calm through acceptance of duration. Sea travel followed the same rhythm of patience and repetition, as coastal routes were navigated through experience rather than calculation. Boats moved according to wind and water rather than command, encouraging acceptance of pace rather than control. This relationship with natural elements reduced pressure and preserved balance, allowing travel by sea to occur without urgency or anxiety. Movement across water therefore supported calm by aligning human activity with environmental rhythm. Rest and reduced activity were naturally integrated into travel, as pauses occurred in response to physical cues rather than schedule. Stopping did not represent delay or failure, but continuation through moderation. This integration prevented exhaustion and preserved strength, allowing individuals to resume movement without resistance. Travel and rest flowed together as parts of the same rhythm rather than separate states. Social behavior during movement remained restrained and predictable, as individuals traveled without emphasis or display. Encounters along the way occurred through shared recognition rather than interaction, preserving harmony and reducing social demand. This restraint allowed travel to remain quiet and uneventful, supporting calm coexistence within shared routes and spaces. Over time, repeated movement shaped a worldview centered on continuity rather than destination. Travel was valued for its role in sustaining connection rather than achieving arrival, preserving calm through familiarity. Individuals moved through land and sea without urgency or anticipation, allowing routine to extend across space without disruption. In ancient Greece, travel and movement sustained daily life quietly by remaining predictable, measured, and deeply integrated across generations. Boats and sea life in ancient Greece formed a calm extension of daily routine rather than a realm of danger or urgency, as the sea was approached through familiarity and acceptance rather than control. Coastal movement followed known patterns shaped by experience and repetition, allowing individuals to engage with water without anticipation or strain. The presence of the sea did not demand attention or excitement, but provided a steady background rhythm that supported continuity within daily life. Boats were constructed and used through established methods that changed little over time, reinforcing reliability rather than innovation. Design favored balance and endurance over speed or display, allowing vessels to move predictably across familiar waters. This consistency reduced uncertainty and preserved calm, enabling travel and work at sea to proceed without tension or heightened awareness. Boats therefore functioned as tools of routine rather than symbols of ambition or exploration. Daily activity along the coast unfolded at a measured pace, as individuals approached the water guided by habit rather than intention. Launching, landing, and maintenance followed repeated sequences that required little adjustment or decision-making. This repetition preserved energy and prevented strain, allowing interaction with the sea to remain steady and sustainable. Sea life was integrated into daily rhythm rather than standing apart as a separate domain. Movement across water reflected patience and moderation, as boats responded to wind and current rather than command. Progress occurred gradually without urgency, encouraging acceptance of natural pace rather than resistance. This alignment with environmental forces reduced anxiety and preserved balance, enabling individuals to remain calm within changing conditions. Sea travel therefore supported steadiness by allowing human activity to adapt quietly to natural rhythm. Work associated with the sea followed similar principles of repetition and restraint, as tasks were performed according to familiar timing rather than immediate demand. Effort was distributed evenly across time, preventing exhaustion and preserving endurance. This measured approach allowed sea-related labor to remain manageable and integrated within routine life. Activity and rest flowed together without sharp distinction, reinforcing calm within daily engagement with water. The coastal environment reinforced stability through familiarity and consistency, as shorelines, harbors, and landmarks remained recognizable across time. These reference points reduced uncertainty and preserved confidence, allowing individuals to navigate without vigilance or stress. Environmental repetition supported ease of movement and orientation, enabling interaction with the sea to occur without heightened awareness. The landscape itself contributed to calm through permanence and predictability. Social behavior around boats and coastal spaces remained restrained and predictable, as individuals shared access without competition or display. Cooperation occurred through shared understanding rather than instruction, preserving harmony and reducing friction. This alignment allowed coastal life to function smoothly without emphasis or urgency. Sea-related activity therefore supported community balance through quiet coordination rather than interaction or command. Over time, the repetition of boats and sea life shaped a worldview centered on acceptance and continuity. The sea was not perceived as a challenge to overcome, but as a presence to move within calmly and respectfully. Individuals engaged with water without anticipation or resistance, allowing routine to extend naturally across land and sea. In ancient Greece, boats and sea life sustained daily life quietly by remaining predictable, measured, and deeply integrated across generations. Social order in ancient Greek society existed as a quiet structure maintained through familiarity and shared expectation rather than authority or enforcement, as individuals understood their place through repetition and observation. Roles were not announced or negotiated daily, but absorbed gradually through presence within routine life. This implicit understanding reduced conflict and preserved calm, allowing society to function smoothly without constant adjustment or intervention. Daily behavior aligned naturally with social order through habit rather than instruction, as individuals mirrored patterns observed across family and community. Actions were guided by recognition of what was expected rather than by fear of consequence, enabling cooperation without tension. This alignment reduced uncertainty and preserved balance, allowing social interaction to remain restrained and predictable. Order emerged from continuity rather than control, sustaining calm within collective life. Public and private roles blended gently rather than existing as rigid divisions, as individuals moved between contexts without changing identity or behavior sharply. This fluidity reduced strain and prevented fragmentation, enabling people to remain steady across different settings. Social order therefore supported integration rather than separation, allowing routine to continue without disruption or emphasis. Life unfolded as a unified rhythm rather than segmented responsibility. Hierarchy existed quietly through familiarity rather than display, as respect developed through long presence rather than assertion. Individuals recognized experience and contribution without overt acknowledgement, allowing authority to remain subtle and stable. This restraint preserved harmony and reduced competition, enabling social relationships to remain calm and enduring. Order functioned through recognition rather than declaration, supporting steadiness across generations. Community expectations shaped behavior without demanding attention or reflection, as norms were internalized through repetition rather than taught explicitly. Individuals adjusted conduct naturally to maintain alignment with others, reducing friction and preserving cohesion. This quiet regulation prevented escalation and preserved trust, allowing social life to proceed without vigilance or correction. Social order thus acted as a background rhythm rather than a visible structure. Shared routines reinforced social alignment by synchronizing daily activity, as individuals moved and rested according to common patterns. This synchronization reduced isolation and prevented disorder, enabling collective life to function without coordination. Social cohesion emerged through shared time rather than shared opinion, preserving calm through rhythm rather than agreement. Society remained stable by repeating what was already known rather than introducing change. Environmental consistency supported social order by providing familiar settings for interaction, as spaces remained predictable across time. Public and domestic environments guided behavior through recognition rather than rules, allowing individuals to act confidently without monitoring. This stability reduced anxiety and preserved ease, supporting calm coexistence within shared spaces. The environment itself reinforced social order through permanence and repetition. Over time, the repetition of social patterns shaped a worldview centered on continuity and mutual reliance. Social order was valued for its ability to sustain daily life quietly rather than to organize ambition or power. Individuals participated without urgency or resistance, allowing routine to remain uninterrupted. In ancient Greek society, social order sustained balance by remaining implicit familiar and deeply integrated across generations. Family structure and generational continuity in ancient Greece unfolded through familiarity and repetition rather than formal organization or explicit definition, as roles and relationships were absorbed gradually through daily presence. The household functioned as a stable rhythm where generations coexisted without sharp boundaries or transitions, allowing identity to develop quietly over time. This continuity reduced uncertainty and preserved calm, enabling family life to remain steady across changing ages and responsibilities. Generational roles emerged through observation rather than instruction, as younger members learned behavior by witnessing routine unfold day after day. Expectations were not explained or emphasized, but internalized through repetition and proximity. This method reduced pressure and preserved harmony, allowing individuals to adapt naturally without resistance or anxiety. Learning occurred through presence rather than correction, sustaining calm within the household across time. Daily interaction between generations followed predictable patterns shaped by habit rather than intention, as shared spaces encouraged quiet coexistence. Older and younger members aligned behavior through recognition rather than negotiation, reducing conflict and preserving balance. This alignment allowed family life to function smoothly without constant adjustment or emphasis. Relationships developed through shared rhythm rather than conversation or declaration, reinforcing continuity within the home. Responsibilities shifted gradually as individuals aged, without abrupt change or announcement. Tasks and roles were assumed naturally as capacity and experience increased, allowing identity to evolve without strain. This gradual transition preserved stability and prevented disruption, enabling the household to maintain balance across generations. Change occurred quietly within routine rather than through formal reassignment or expectation. The physical environment of the home supported generational continuity through familiarity and permanence, as spaces remained consistent across long periods of use. Shared areas encouraged repeated interaction without forcing engagement, allowing relationships to deepen through presence rather than activity. Environmental stability reduced uncertainty and preserved ease, supporting calm coexistence within the household. The home itself acted as a container for generational rhythm rather than a stage for individual distinction. Social values reinforced respect for experience without requiring display or enforcement, as age and contribution were recognized implicitly through routine interaction. Authority developed through familiarity rather than assertion, preserving harmony and reducing competition. This restraint allowed generational relationships to remain balanced and enduring, supporting calm within family life. Respect functioned quietly as part of shared understanding rather than visible hierarchy. Daily routines synchronized generations through shared timing and activity, as individuals moved and rested according to common patterns. This synchronization reduced separation and strengthened cohesion, enabling family life to function without coordination or instruction. Shared rhythm replaced explicit structure, preserving calm through alignment rather than control. The family existed as a continuous flow rather than a collection of defined roles. Over time, the repetition of family life and generational interaction shaped a worldview centered on continuity and mutual reliance. The family was valued for its ability to sustain daily life quietly rather than to define identity or authority. Individuals remained connected through routine presence rather than obligation or expectation, allowing life to continue without interruption. In ancient Greece, family structure and generations sustained balance by remaining familiar, steady, and deeply integrated across generations. Childhood and learning in ancient Greece unfolded gradually through routine presence rather than formal instruction or structured progression, as knowledge was absorbed through observation and repetition within daily life. Children were not separated sharply from adult rhythm, but remained close to familiar activity, allowing understanding to develop quietly over time. This integration reduced pressure and preserved calm, enabling learning to occur without urgency or expectation. Early years were shaped by exposure to routine rather than by deliberate teaching, as children witnessed daily actions repeated consistently around them. Skills, behaviors, and social awareness emerged through imitation rather than explanation, allowing learning to feel natural and unforced. This method reduced cognitive strain and preserved steadiness, supporting development without stress or resistance. Learning occurred as part of living rather than as a distinct activity requiring focus or evaluation. Movement within domestic and communal spaces supported learning through familiarity, as children followed known paths and observed repeated patterns of behavior. These environments required little adjustment or navigation, allowing attention to remain relaxed and unoccupied. Through repeated exposure, understanding accumulated quietly without conscious effort. Space itself functioned as a teacher through consistency and repetition rather than instruction. Social learning emerged through shared presence rather than correction, as children adjusted behavior by observing alignment within the group. Expectations were absorbed implicitly without emphasis or reinforcement, reducing anxiety and preserving harmony. This quiet regulation allowed learning to remain steady and gradual, preventing disruption or conflict. Children became part of social rhythm through familiarity rather than discipline or command. Responsibility increased slowly as children grew older, without formal transition or announcement. Tasks were assumed naturally through observation and readiness rather than assignment, allowing confidence to develop without pressure. This gradual expansion of role preserved balance and prevented overwhelm, enabling learning to progress at an even pace. Growth was experienced as continuation rather than change, supporting calm development across time. The absence of rigid structure allowed learning to remain flexible and adaptive, responding gently to individual readiness rather than schedule. This openness reduced comparison and preserved ease, allowing children to remain present within routine rather than striving toward milestones. Learning unfolded as accumulation rather than progression, reinforcing steadiness rather than ambition. Knowledge was valued for usefulness within daily life rather than for distinction or achievement. Environmental consistency further supported learning through repetition, as spaces remained stable and predictable across time. Familiar surroundings reduced uncertainty and preserved confidence, allowing children to explore and observe without vigilance. This stability enabled curiosity to exist quietly without stimulation or distraction. The environment itself contributed to learning by providing continuity rather than novelty. Over time, the repetition of childhood routine shaped a worldview centered on continuity and belonging. Learning was not perceived as preparation for future success, but as integration into existing rhythm. Children grew into daily life rather than moving beyond it, preserving calm through familiarity. In ancient Greece, childhood and learning sustained balance by remaining gradual, steady, and deeply embedded within routine life across generations. Health and daily care in ancient Greece existed as quiet elements of routine rather than responses to crisis or urgency, as care of the body was integrated steadily into everyday life. Well-being was not pursued through intervention or constant attention, but maintained through familiar habits repeated consistently across time. This approach reduced anxiety and preserved calm, allowing individuals to remain balanced without monitoring or concern. Daily care followed simple, predictable patterns shaped by habit rather than instruction, as individuals tended to the body through actions learned by repetition. These practices required little reflection or adjustment, enabling care to occur without disruption or focus. Familiar routines preserved steadiness and reduced mental demand, allowing health to remain a background condition rather than an objective. Care was performed as maintenance rather than response, supporting continuity within daily life. Physical comfort was supported through moderation rather than correction, as individuals adjusted activity and rest according to bodily cues. Pain or fatigue were not immediately addressed through intervention, but allowed to settle through reduced effort and patience. This measured response preserved energy and prevented escalation, enabling the body to recover naturally within routine rhythm. Health therefore aligned with acceptance rather than control, reinforcing calm through restraint. Spaces associated with care supported familiarity and order, as domestic environments remained consistent and predictable. Surfaces, vessels, and tools used for daily care were arranged for repeated use without variation, reducing uncertainty and distraction. This environmental stability preserved ease and confidence, allowing individuals to care for themselves without vigilance or awareness. The setting itself contributed to calm by remaining unchanged and unremarkable. Social understanding of health emphasized endurance rather than optimization, as well-being was valued for its ability to support daily life rather than performance. Individuals did not compare condition or seek improvement aggressively, allowing health to remain personal and quiet. This restraint reduced social pressure and preserved harmony, enabling care to occur without judgment or expectation. Health functioned as a shared baseline rather than a marker of distinction. Periods of reduced activity were accepted naturally within daily rhythm, as rest occurred in response to physical signals rather than schedule. Pauses were not perceived as interruption or failure, but as continuation through moderation. This integration prevented exhaustion and preserved long-term balance, allowing individuals to return to routine without resistance. Activity and care flowed together without separation or emphasis. Environmental factors such as light, temperature, and air influenced care practices without instruction, guiding behavior through familiarity rather than awareness. Individuals adjusted naturally without analysis or concern, allowing comfort to be restored gradually. This alignment reduced stress and preserved calm, supporting steady engagement with daily life across changing conditions. Health remained supported by environment rather than controlled through intervention. Over time, the repetition of health and daily care shaped a worldview centered on moderation and continuity. Well-being was valued for its stability rather than its enhancement, preserving calm through sufficiency. Individuals maintained health quietly through routine rather than attention, allowing life to continue without interruption. In ancient Greece, health and daily care sustained balance by remaining gentle, familiar, and deeply integrated across generations. Midday rest and shade in Greek cities formed a quiet pause within daily rhythm rather than an interruption or withdrawal, as activity softened naturally in response to light and warmth. The middle hours of the day did not demand productivity or movement, allowing routine to adjust gently without decision or evaluation. This slowing preserved balance and reduced strain, enabling individuals to remain present without fatigue or urgency. Movement across the city became measured and restrained, as individuals sought familiar shaded spaces through habit rather than intention. Courtyards covered walkways and interior rooms provided relief without requiring change or preparation. This predictable retreat reduced effort and preserved calm, allowing rest to occur naturally within routine life. Shade functioned as an extension of daily rhythm rather than a destination or refuge. Daily tasks adapted quietly to midday conditions, as effort softened and pace slowed without formal pause. Work did not cease abruptly or resume with urgency, but flowed gently through reduced intensity. This moderation prevented exhaustion and preserved endurance, enabling individuals to continue activity later without resistance. Rest and work therefore remained connected rather than separated, reinforcing calm through continuity. Domestic spaces supported midday rest through familiarity and order, as interiors remained cool and consistent across time. Individuals settled into known areas without adjustment or awareness, allowing stillness to develop naturally. This environmental stability reduced stimulation and preserved ease, enabling rest without focus or intention. The home itself participated in sustaining balance through shade and enclosure, rather than activity or distraction. Public spaces also reflected this softened rhythm, as movement decreased and presence became quieter. Individuals coexisted within shared shade without interaction or emphasis, allowing community life to continue without demand. This restraint reduced social pressure and preserved harmony, enabling rest to occur collectively without coordination. The city breathed slowly through this shared pause rather than stopping entirely. Physical and mental recovery occurred quietly during midday rest, as the body adjusted through stillness rather than intervention. Fatigue settled without being addressed directly, allowing energy to return gradually. This acceptance prevented strain and preserved steadiness, supporting continued engagement with daily life. Rest was not perceived as absence of action, but as a necessary modulation within routine rhythm. Environmental cues guided midday behavior without instruction, as light temperature and air signaled the need for reduced activity. These cues were familiar and reliable, allowing individuals to respond naturally without analysis. This alignment with surroundings reduced anxiety and preserved calm, enabling rest to occur without anticipation or resistance. The environment itself shaped behavior gently through consistency rather than force. Over time, the repetition of midday rest shaped a worldview centered on moderation and endurance. Stillness was valued for its role in sustaining daily rhythm rather than for escape or retreat. Individuals accepted pause as part of continuity rather than disruption, preserving calm through acceptance. In Greek cities, midday rest and shade sustained balance by remaining familiar, gentle, and deeply integrated across generations. Religion in ancient Greece existed as a quiet and familiar presence woven into daily routine rather than a dramatic expression of belief or devotion. As spiritual awareness followed habit and continuity instead of ceremony or intensity. Religious practice did not interrupt ordinary life or demand heightened attention, but accompanied daily movement gently through repetition and recognition. This integration reduced anxiety and preserved calm, allowing belief to remain steady and unforced within everyday rhythm. Daily religious awareness unfolded through small, repeated actions rather than formal gatherings, as individuals acknowledged sacred presence without emphasis or display. These gestures required little preparation or reflection, enabling spiritual routine to blend naturally into daily activity. Familiarity replaced anticipation, preserving balance and preventing stimulation. Religion therefore functioned as a background rhythm rather than a focal event within life. Household practices reflected this quiet integration, as domestic spaces accommodated routine acknowledgement without alteration or effort. Individuals moved through familiar environments guided by habit rather than intention, allowing spiritual routine to occur without interruption or demand. This consistency reduced mental effort and preserved steadiness, enabling belief to remain present without occupying attention. The home itself supported spiritual continuity through familiarity rather than decoration or structure. Public religious presence followed similar patterns of restraint, as shared spaces allowed quiet coexistence rather than collective emphasis. Individuals aligned behavior through shared understanding rather than instruction, preventing escalation or competition. This alignment preserved harmony and reduced social pressure, allowing religion to support cohesion without commanding attention. Shared belief existed through routine presence rather than declaration or demonstration. Time associated with religious routine was not marked by urgency or obligation, as acknowledgement occurred according to habit rather than schedule. Individuals did not measure devotion or fulfillment, allowing practice to remain free of evaluation. This absence of pressure preserved calm and prevented restlessness, enabling belief to support steadiness rather than anxiety. Religion therefore reinforced continuity by remaining predictable and unobtrusive. Environmental cues such as light space and quiet supported spiritual routine without instruction, allowing acknowledgement to occur naturally within surroundings. These cues were familiar and consistent, reducing uncertainty and preserving ease. Individuals responded without analysis or anticipation, maintaining calm through recognition rather than reflection. The environment itself participated in sustaining spiritual rhythm through repetition and stability. Social understanding of religion emphasized shared presence rather than expression, allowing belief to unify without differentiation. Individuals did not seek distinction through practice, preserving balance and preventing division. This restraint reduced tension and preserved trust, enabling religion to function as a stabilizing influence rather than a source of intensity. Spiritual life remained aligned with routine rather than ambition or identity. Over time, the repetition of religious routine shaped a worldview centered on continuity and acceptance. Belief was valued for its ability to support daily life quietly rather than to transform or challenge it. Individuals carried spiritual awareness without urgency or resistance, allowing routine to continue without disruption. In ancient Greece, religion as daily routine sustained calm endurance by remaining familiar, gentle, and deeply integrated across generations. Temples and sacred spaces in ancient Greece existed as calm and familiar elements of the landscape, rather than destinations of intensity or spectacle. As these places were approached through routine presence rather than heightened devotion, sacred spaces did not interrupt daily movement or require preparation, but remained integrated within the rhythm of ordinary life through familiarity and repetition. This integration reduced emotional demand and preserved calm, allowing temples to support continuity rather than stimulation. Approach to temples followed known paths and habits rather than intention or anticipation, as individuals passed near or through sacred spaces without altering pace or behavior. Presence did not require prolonged attention or reflection, enabling sacred acknowledgement to occur quietly within routine movement. This familiarity reduced uncertainty and preserved steadiness, allowing sacred spaces to exist without imposing change or disruption. Temples therefore functioned as anchors of continuity rather than centers of activity. The physical structure of temples reinforced calm through permanence and simplicity, as stone forms and repeated proportions created predictable visual patterns. Architectural consistency reduced sensory demand and prevented distraction, allowing individuals to remain relaxed within these spaces. Familiar layouts required no navigation or interpretation, preserving ease and confidence. The built environment itself supported calm through stability rather than ornament or contrast. Time spent within sacred spaces was not measured or evaluated, as individuals entered and departed without expectation of outcome. There was no urgency to remain or to leave, allowing presence to unfold naturally. This absence of obligation preserved calm and prevented restlessness, enabling sacred space to support stillness rather than attention. Temples existed as places of quiet continuity rather than moments of transformation. Social behavior within temples remained restrained and predictable, as individuals shared space without interaction or display. Recognition of sacred presence occurred collectively without coordination, reducing social pressure and preventing escalation. This alignment preserved harmony and allowed coexistence without emphasis, enabling sacred spaces to support communal balance quietly. Shared belief manifested through presence rather than action or expression. Environmental qualities such as light, shadow, and enclosure contributed to calm within sacred spaces, guiding awareness gently without instruction. These cues were familiar and consistent, allowing individuals to adjust naturally without reflection. This subtle influence preserved steadiness and reduced mental activity, supporting a calm experience without stimulation. The environment itself reinforced sacred rhythm through repetition and moderation. The location of temples within the city and landscape reinforced their integration into daily life, as sacred spaces remained accessible and visible without isolation. Individuals encountered these places regularly through routine movement, preventing separation between sacred and ordinary experience. This proximity preserved balance and continuity, allowing spiritual awareness to remain part of daily rhythm rather than an interruption. Sacred space therefore extended into everyday life quietly and consistently. Over time, repeated presence within temples shaped a worldview centered on stability and acceptance. Sacred spaces were valued for their endurance rather than their capacity to inspire or transform, preserving calm through permanence. Individuals related to these places without urgency or expectation, allowing routine to continue uninterrupted. In ancient Greece, temples and sacred spaces sustained daily life quietly by remaining familiar, steady, and deeply integrated across generations. Evening life in ancient Greece arrived gradually and without announcement. As light softened across familiar spaces and activity eased naturally rather than stopping abruptly. The transition from day to evening did not require intention or preparation, allowing routine to adjust gently through recognition rather than decision. This gradual shift preserved calm and reduced strain, enabling individuals to remain present as the pace of life softened. Daily tasks reached quiet completion without urgency, as effort diminished according to habit rather than schedule. Individuals did not rush to conclude activity or mark endings, allowing work and movement to settle evenly. This measured slowdown prevented fatigue and preserved balance, supporting endurance across the full span of the day. Evening therefore unfolded as a continuation rather than a change, maintaining rhythm through familiarity. Domestic spaces became the focus of evening presence, as individuals returned naturally to known environments without anticipation. Homes supported stillness through familiarity and enclosure, reducing stimulation and encouraging ease. Movement within these spaces required little attention or adjustment, allowing the body and mind to settle quietly. The home functioned as a stabilizing environment that absorbed remaining activity without effort or demand. Social interaction during evening hours remained restrained and predictable, as presence replaced engagement and proximity replaced interaction. Individuals shared space without emphasis or display, allowing connection to exist quietly without expectation. This restraint reduced social pressure and preserved harmony, enabling evening life to remain calm and restorative. Community existed through shared stillness rather than conversation or action. Light diminished gradually across the city and countryside, guiding behavior without instruction or reflection. Individuals adjusted pace naturally in response to changing brightness and temperature, allowing routine to soften without disruption. These environmental cues were familiar and reliable, reducing uncertainty and preserving confidence. Evening rhythm was shaped by recognition rather than awareness, supporting calm transition toward rest. Activities associated with evening followed repetition rather than variation, as familiar actions prepared individuals for stillness without drawing attention. These actions required no evaluation or focus, allowing routine to continue without mental demand. This predictability preserved steadiness and reduced cognitive load, enabling the mind to remain unoccupied. Evening tasks functioned as gentle signals of closure rather than objectives to complete. Public spaces reflected this softened rhythm, as movement decreased and presence became quieter. Streets and open areas emptied gradually without coordination, allowing the city to rest without sudden absence. This gentle reduction preserved balance and prevented contrast, enabling evening calm to extend naturally across shared environments. The city itself participated in slowing rather than stopping, reinforcing continuity through moderation. Over time, the repetition of evening life shaped a worldview centered on acceptance and balance. Evening was not perceived as an ending or withdrawal, but as a necessary modulation within daily rhythm. Individuals welcomed this softness without resistance or anticipation, allowing routine to carry them toward rest naturally. In ancient Greece, evening life sustained calm endurance by remaining familiar, gentle, and deeply integrated across generations. Nightfall in ancient Greece arrived as a gradual deepening of stillness rather than a sudden change. As light withdrew gently and familiar spaces settled into quiet continuity. Streets did not empty abruptly or transform dramatically, but softened into reduced movement and presence through recognition rather than decision. This slow transition preserved calm and prevented contrast, allowing the city to remain coherent as activity diminished. Movement through streets became minimal and unhurried, as individuals followed known paths without attention or urgency. Familiar routes required no navigation or adjustment, enabling quiet passage without vigilance. The absence of crowding and noise reduced stimulation and preserved ease, allowing night to unfold without tension or anticipation. Streets functioned as extensions of routine rather than as spaces of transition or uncertainty. Architecture supported calm during nightfall through permanence and repetition, as stone forms and familiar boundaries remained unchanged. Visual consistency reduced sensory demand and prevented distraction, allowing individuals to feel oriented and secure without effort. This stability preserved confidence and reduced alertness, enabling the city to settle into rest naturally. The built environment itself participated in quieting through familiarity rather than alteration. Social presence during nightfall remained restrained and predictable, as individuals acknowledged one another through proximity rather than interaction. There was no expectation of engagement or display, allowing coexistence to continue without demand. This restraint preserved harmony and prevented escalation, enabling shared spaces to remain calm even as visibility diminished. Community life softened without fragmenting, maintaining continuity through shared stillness. Environmental cues guided behavior without instruction, as darkness, temperature, and air signaled reduced activity gently. These cues were familiar and reliable, allowing adjustment to occur naturally rather than consciously. Individuals slowed without resistance or anticipation, supporting a calm descent into night. The environment shaped rhythm quietly through consistency rather than contrast. Domestic boundaries became more defined as night progressed, yet without isolation or separation. Homes absorbed remaining presence gently, reducing external movement without forcing withdrawal. This enclosure preserved comfort and security, allowing individuals to settle without effort or decision. The transition from public to domestic space occurred through habit rather than intention, maintaining continuity across settings. Silence did not arrive suddenly, but accumulated gradually as activity faded. Sound softened without disappearing entirely, reinforcing a sense of presence without stimulation. This layered quiet preserved awareness without alertness, enabling the mind to remain steady and unoccupied. Night soundscape supported calm through moderation rather than absence, allowing rest to approach without disruption. Over time, the repetition of nightfall shaped a worldview centered on acceptance and balance. Darkness was not perceived as threat or ending, but as a familiar phase within daily rhythm. Individuals moved into night without urgency or resistance, trusting routine to carry them forward. In ancient Greece, nightfall and calm streets sustained endurance by remaining predictable, gentle, and deeply integrated across generations. Sleep and rest in ancient Greece emerged as natural continuations of daily rhythm, rather than deliberate acts requiring preparation or intention, as the body responded quietly to diminishing activity and softened light. Rest did not arrive through command or effort, but through gradual easing as routine carried individuals toward stillness. This acceptance reduced resistance and preserved calm, allowing sleep to unfold without anticipation or concern. Evening routine prepared the body for rest through familiarity rather than change, as repeated actions signaled closure without demanding attention. These actions required no reflection or adjustment, allowing the mind to remain unoccupied as activity settled. Predictability preserved steadiness and reduced cognitive demand, enabling rest to approach gently. Sleep was invited through continuity rather than pursued through effort. Sleeping spaces supported calm through familiarity and permanence, as bedding and surroundings remained consistent across time. Individuals settled into known environments without awareness or evaluation, allowing comfort to develop naturally. This environmental stability reduced alertness and preserved ease, supporting rest without vigilance. The space itself participated in guiding the body toward sleep through repetition rather than stimulation. The transition from wakefulness to sleep occurred gradually without clear boundary, as awareness softened rather than ceased abruptly. Thoughts slowed without direction, allowing attention to drift without focus or control. This gentle descent preserved calm and prevented tension, enabling sleep to deepen naturally. Rest was experienced as release rather than absence, supporting mental quiet without effort. Social expectations around rest emphasized acceptance rather than productivity, allowing individuals to sleep without judgment or comparison. There was no pressure to optimize duration or quality, reducing anxiety and preserving balance. This cultural restraint allowed sleep to remain restorative rather than performative, supporting well-being through moderation. Rest existed as part of shared rhythm rather than individual responsibility. Environmental cues such as darkness, temperature, and silence guided sleep without instruction, allowing the body to respond naturally rather than consciously. These cues were familiar and reliable, reducing uncertainty and preserving trust in routine. Individuals surrendered to rest without anticipation or resistance, enabling sleep to occur smoothly. The environment itself shaped sleep rhythm quietly through consistency rather than contrast. Interruptions during rest were accepted without reaction, as waking and resettling occurred without evaluation or frustration. Individuals returned to stillness through habit rather than effort, preserving calm despite variation. This acceptance reduced strain and prevented escalation, allowing rest to remain continuous even when imperfect. Sleep therefore remained resilient within routine life. Over time, the repetition of sleep and rest shaped a worldview centered on acceptance and endurance. Rest was valued for its ability to sustain daily rhythm quietly rather than to restore energy aggressively. Individuals trusted routine to carry them into sleep without intervention, preserving calm through familiarity. In ancient Greece, sleep and rest sustained balance by remaining predictable, gentle, and deeply integrated across generations. Aging in ancient Greece unfolded as a gradual deepening of presence rather than a process of decline or separation, as experience accumulated quietly through repeated living rather than through recognition or status. Older individuals did not withdraw abruptly from daily life, but remained integrated within routine through familiarity and continuity. This integration reduced fear and preserved calm, allowing aging to be experienced as extension rather than loss. Respect for experience emerged naturally through observation rather than declaration, as familiarity with long-practiced behavior guided acknowledgement without emphasis. Individuals recognized steadiness and reliability through daily interaction rather than through ceremony or authority. This subtle recognition preserved harmony and reduced competition, enabling respect to remain quiet and enduring. Experience functioned as a stabilizing influence rather than a visible hierarchy within social life. Daily roles adjusted gently with age rather than changing suddenly, allowing contribution to continue without strain or expectation. Older individuals participated according to capacity rather than obligation, preserving balance between activity and rest. This gradual adjustment prevented disruption and preserved dignity, enabling presence without pressure or evaluation. Aging therefore unfolded within routine rather than against it. Family and community life supported aging through shared rhythm rather than special treatment, as older members remained part of familiar patterns. Interaction occurred through proximity and observation rather than instruction or correction, allowing experience to guide without demand. This alignment preserved calm and prevented isolation, enabling generational continuity without division. Aging remained embedded within collective life rather than set apart as a separate stage. The physical environment supported older presence through stability and predictability, as spaces remained unchanged and navigable through habit. Familiar paths, surfaces, and arrangements reduced effort and preserved confidence, allowing movement without vigilance. This environmental continuity preserved ease and prevented anxiety, enabling older individuals to remain active within routine without strain. The environment itself participated in sustaining respect through permanence rather than adaptation. Social expectations around aging emphasized endurance rather than productivity, valuing presence and reliability over output or change. Individuals were not measured by pace or novelty, allowing older experience to exist without comparison. This restraint reduced pressure and preserved balance, enabling aging to remain calm and accepted. Experience was valued quietly as part of shared rhythm rather than elevated or isolated. Time was perceived differently through accumulated experience, as repetition reinforced familiarity rather than urgency. Older individuals moved through daily life without anticipation or resistance, trusting routine to continue as it always had. This perspective preserved calm and prevented restlessness, enabling acceptance of change without anxiety. Aging therefore supported steadiness by reinforcing continuity rather than transition. Over time, the repetition of aging and accumulated experience shaped a worldview centered on endurance and acceptance. Respect was not demanded or performed, but absorbed through daily presence and familiarity. Individuals aged within life rather than away from it, preserving calm through integration. In ancient Greece, aging and respect for experience sustained balance by remaining familiar, gentle, and deeply integrated across generations. Death in ancient Greek thought was understood as a continuation within the larger rhythm of life, rather than a sudden ending or rupture, as existence was perceived through cycles of presence, absence, and return. This understanding reduced fear and softened uncertainty, allowing individuals to relate to death without urgency or resistance. Mortality did not demand constant attention or preparation, but remained integrated quietly within daily awareness through familiarity and acceptance. Daily life did not pause to contemplate death, nor did it separate the living sharply from the memory of those who had passed. Absence was absorbed gradually through routine rather than marked through disruption, enabling continuity to remain intact. Individuals carried awareness without fixation, preserving calm by allowing life to proceed without interruption or escalation. Death existed as part of rhythm rather than as an event requiring resolution. Social understanding of death emphasized endurance rather than loss, as memory was maintained through presence within routine rather than through ceremony alone. The lives of those who had passed continued to influence daily patterns through familiarity and habit, allowing connection to remain quiet and stable. This perspective reduced grief intensity and preserved balance, enabling remembrance without emotional demand. Memory functioned as continuity rather than interruption within social life. Domestic environments supported this acceptance through permanence and repetition, as spaces remained unchanged despite absence. Familiar surroundings reduced the sense of rupture and preserved confidence, allowing individuals to remain grounded within routine life. The environment itself absorbed loss through stability rather than change, supporting calm adaptation without vigilance or adjustment. The home remained a container of continuity rather than a reminder of separation. Ritual acknowledgement of death occurred without urgency or display, as practices followed known forms repeated across generations. These gestures required no heightened emotion or reflection, allowing acceptance to develop through repetition. This restraint preserved calm and prevented escalation, enabling individuals to integrate loss without disruption. Ritual functioned as maintenance of rhythm rather than response to crisis. Time altered perception of absence gradually rather than abruptly, as repetition softened sharpness and restored balance. Individuals adjusted presence naturally without deliberate effort or reflection, allowing memory to settle into routine awareness. This gentle adjustment preserved steadiness and prevented restlessness, enabling life to continue without resistance. Healing occurred through continuity rather than intervention, reinforcing calm acceptance across time. Environmental cycles reinforced this understanding of continuity, as seasons and daily rhythm continued regardless of individual presence. This consistency reduced the perception of finality and preserved balance, allowing individuals to accept change without anxiety. Life and absence coexisted within the same pattern, supporting calm recognition rather than confrontation. The world itself modeled continuity through repetition and return. Over time, the repetition of loss and remembrance shaped a worldview centered on acceptance and endurance. Death was not perceived as disruption to life, but as part of its ongoing rhythm. Individuals lived with awareness of mortality without urgency or fear, trusting routine to carry continuity forward. In ancient Greece, death as continuity sustained calm endurance by remaining familiar, gentle, and deeply integrated across generations. Memory and tradition in ancient Greece functioned as quiet forces that preserved daily stability rather than as narratives actively recalled or retold, as remembrance lived within habit rather than reflection. Individuals did not revisit the past through deliberate thought, but carried it forward through repeated action and familiar routine. This continuity reduced uncertainty and preserved calm, allowing daily life to remain grounded without conscious effort or emotional demand. Tradition was sustained through repetition rather than instruction, as behaviors, customs, and rhythms passed naturally from one generation to the next through presence and observation. There was no urgency to preserve or explain these patterns, because familiarity ensured their continuation without intervention. This effortless transmission reduced strain and preserved balance, enabling tradition to exist as an extension of daily life rather than a responsibility or task. Daily stability emerged from this embedded memory, as individuals moved through known sequences that required no evaluation or adjustment. Familiar actions created predictability that supported confidence and ease, allowing attention to remain unoccupied. This stability prevented disruption and minimized stress, enabling routine to continue smoothly across time. Memory therefore functioned as structure without visibility, supporting calm through reliability rather than awareness. Social life reinforced tradition through shared rhythm rather than agreement or enforcement, as individuals aligned behavior through observation rather than discussion. Collective memory existed within synchronized movement and timing rather than within narrative or ceremony. This alignment preserved harmony and reduced conflict, enabling community life to function without constant negotiation. Tradition unified daily life quietly by shaping behavior rather than identity. Domestic environments supported memory through permanence and repetition, as spaces remained consistent across long periods of use. Familiar surroundings reinforced habit without drawing attention to change or loss, allowing individuals to remain oriented and secure. This environmental continuity preserved ease and reduced cognitive demand, supporting stability within daily life. The home itself acted as a vessel for memory through repetition rather than symbolism. Change occurred gradually within tradition rather than against it, as small variations were absorbed without disrupting overall rhythm. Individuals adapted naturally without resisting or highlighting difference, allowing stability to persist despite subtle transformation. This flexibility preserved calm and prevented rigidity, enabling tradition to remain living rather than fixed. Memory, therefore, supported endurance by accommodating change quietly within continuity. Time was experienced as layered rather than linear, as past, present, and future coexisted within routine action. Individuals lived within accumulated experience without separating moments sharply, reducing pressure to progress or conclude. This perception preserved calm and prevented restlessness, allowing daily life to feel sustained rather than driven. Memory acted as grounding rather than weight, supporting balance through familiarity. Over time, the repetition of memory and tradition shaped a worldview centered on continuity and acceptance. Stability was valued not for resistance to change, but for its ability to carry life forward gently. Individuals trusted routine to preserve meaning without conscious effort, allowing calm to endure across generations. In ancient Greece, memory, tradition, and daily stability sustained balance by remaining familiar, gentle, and deeply integrated within everyday life. Continuity of life in ancient Greece existed as a steady underlying rhythm rather than a concept requiring explanation or belief, as daily existence flowed through repetition and familiarity without emphasis or interruption. Life was not experienced as a sequence of beginnings and endings, but as an ongoing presence sustained through routine and shared rhythm. This perception reduced anxiety and preserved calm, allowing individuals to move through time without urgency or resistance. Daily actions carried meaning through repetition rather than intention, as familiar movements reinforced stability without conscious awareness. Individuals did not seek novelty or transformation within ordinary life, trusting routine to provide balance and coherence. This trust reduced mental demand and preserved steadiness, enabling presence to remain unoccupied and calm. Life continued not through effort or ambition, but through acceptance of repetition and return. The environment reinforced continuity through permanence and predictability, as landscape structures and paths remained recognizable across long periods. These stable surroundings reduced uncertainty and preserved confidence, allowing individuals to feel oriented without vigilance. Environmental consistency absorbed change quietly without disruption, supporting calm adaptation through familiarity rather than adjustment. The world itself modeled endurance through repetition and stability. Social life reflected this continuity through shared rhythm rather than shared intention, as individuals aligned behavior through observation rather than agreement. Community existed through synchronized presence rather than interaction or declaration, preserving harmony without demand. This alignment reduced conflict and preserved balance, allowing collective life to remain steady without coordination. Society functioned as a continuation of daily rhythm rather than as a system requiring maintenance. Time was perceived as cyclical and layered rather than linear and progressive, allowing past, present, and future to coexist within routine awareness. Individuals lived within accumulated experience without separating moments sharply, reducing pressure to advance or conclude. This perception preserved calm and prevented restlessness, enabling life to feel sustained rather than driven. Continuity replaced urgency as the organizing principle of existence. Change occurred within continuity rather than against it, as small variations were absorbed without disrupting overall rhythm. Individuals adapted quietly through habit rather than resistance or emphasis, allowing life to evolve gently without strain. This flexibility preserved calm and prevented rigidity, enabling continuity to remain living rather than static. Life endured by accommodating difference within familiarity rather than opposing it. The repetition of daily rhythm supported acceptance of uncertainty without fear, as continuity provided reassurance despite variation. Individuals trusted routine to carry them forward without control or anticipation, allowing presence to remain steady and unforced. This trust reduced anxiety and preserved ease, enabling life to unfold naturally. Continuity functioned as a stabilizing force that required no attention or defense. Over time, the lived experience of continuity shaped a worldview centered on balance, endurance, and acceptance. Life was valued for its persistence rather than its achievement, preserving calm through sufficiency. Individuals remained within the flow of existence without urgency or resistance, allowing routine to sustain meaning quietly. In ancient Greece, continuity of life endured through repetition, familiarity, and shared rhythm, carrying calm presence forward across generations.